This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Good afternoon, Carl Deffenbaugh joining you here on this Wednesday in Wisconsin from the Wisconsin Live Desk. Whatever happens over the next hour, the news as it breaks, as it happens, we will take you there live. I want to give you a quick rundown of a couple of the things we're tracking that's happening right now. We'll try to get for you over the next hour or so. First and foremost, you're getting a live look at downtown Milwaukee there, seeing some of the clouds, a bit of sun trying to peek through, but of course we know what's on the way. Rain and even snow today before we finally turn things around for the weekend. We're going to try to get a check of the weather from our meteorologist, Stephanie Barrichello, taking a look around the state for us later in this hour. Meanwhile, we are also keeping an eye on what is happening over in Wauwatosa right now. This is a live look. Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin campus right there will be hosting a Donate Life flag raising event. That is coming up a little after 1 o'clock today. So this is actually during National Donate Life Month. Let me get some information for you on that as you're seeing the rotunda there at Freighter and the Medical College right near Children's Wisconsin as well. This is part of 80 different members of Donate Life Wisconsin, different hospitals, all hosting flag raisings today. And you see that flag there, Donate Life, flying already. They're going to raise that flag around 1:08, actually exactly at 1:08 Central Time here in Wauwatosa on this Wednesday. That is to recognize at that time the fact that one life can, in fact, one donor can save 8 lives. And when that happens, we will try to take you there for it. It's also going to involve a 100-second moment of silence today to represent the more than 100,000 patients still waiting for life-saving transplants in the U.S. Here in Wisconsin, that number is 1,400 people who need organ donation. So clearly a need. This is an effort to raise awareness and try to encourage more donations from members. That flag raising fully is supposed to take place a little after 1 o'clock Central Time today. In the meantime, some of the other things we're tracking around the country and around the world. This is a press conference that's been going on for a little bit now. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus is joining forces with the wife of a Maryland man who was deported mistakenly by the U.S. There have been a number of these deportations happening. In this case, the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the U.S. government has admitted he was mistakenly deported, and they are now, the family, both the wife and members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, demanding answers and accountability from the Trump administration on how this happened and how that man could be returned to the United States. And then finally, where we're going to start for you today is actually out of the country in Panama. The U.S. Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, continues his visit to Panama today, meeting with Panamanian leaders. Of course, first and foremost here, the issue, the Panama Canal. President Trump has said he wants the U.S. to regain control of the canal. That is, of course, one of the many topics they are talking about when it comes to trade and U.S. control of a key shipping route built by Americans and others many, many years ago. Let's listen in to some of the leaders from Panama, and then you'll also see Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth answering questions from reporters in Panama.
The minister has said is what the media tries to do very hard is to divide us. And what we call that in the States, Mr. Minister, is fake news. So thank you.
We wrap up this press conference. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and have an awesome afternoon.
And unfortunately, just catching the tail end of that, it had been going on for a little bit, a handshake there from the Defense Secretary and Panamanian counterparts after his meeting in that very key region for U.S. officials, both from a trade and a military standpoint. Since that just wrapped up, let's get you back outside of Washington, D.C. The members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, along with family members of a Maryland man deported mistakenly, speaking now. Let's listen in.
Not just in Washington, D.C., but across the country. And again, the minute we allow the dehumanization of one group, that dehumanizes all of us.
Thank you, Veronica. Jennifer, Doña Cecilia, César, estamos con ustedes. Estamos aquí porque creemos que esta familia debe de ser reunificada inmediatamente. Questions?
the president of El Salvador is coming to the USA. He's going to meet with President Donald Trump. What would you like to hear from them after that meeting regarding this case in particular?
As I said earlier, I will be writing to President Bukele to formally ask for the release of Kilmer. And we also want to know his condition. So I would also be asking to see if myself and those that want to join me could travel to go visit him there. But, when he comes next week, I hope I have an answer before his visit here. And if I don't, then I will ask him again. Right here.
Congresista, la administración Trump dice que la evidencia no la muestran porque es un tema de seguridad nacional. Nosotros no la podemos ver, pero ustedes como miembros del Congreso tampoco tienen acceso a eso. Y también le quiero preguntar porque el presidente Trump dijo ayer que en un principio se había confundido a Kilmer con un miembro del Tren de Aragua y que luego habían dicho, no, es de la MS-13. ¿Sabían ustedes eso?
Bueno, el presidente obviamente está confundido de muchas cosas, incluyendo esa. Y entendemos de que Kilmer, aquí está el sindicato al cual él pertenece, de trabajadores de construcción, de construcción smart, inteligente. Él es un hombre de trabajo, no tiene récord criminal, fue secuestrado prácticamente y llevado a una prisión en otro país, en El Salvador. Y no sabemos su estatus, no sabemos sus condiciones actualmente. El presidente se confunde diariamente de todas las cosas, incluyendo los aranceles, pero estamos aquí para defender a esta familia. Entendemos de que es una familia que merece estar unida. Los hijos de Jennifer y de Kilmer necesitan ser una familia de nuevo, y actualmente no lo son porque él fue secuestrado por esta administración. Next. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about your letter? So in court filings, the Trump administration has said that they feel like they would have to entreat or cajole El Salvador for Kilmer's return. Are you hoping that you're able to negotiate that yourself?
Look, we feel that we know that there are no charges against him. There are no charges here, and there are no charges in El Salvador. He has not been charged with a crime, and yet he sits in jail. We believe fundamentally that that is illegal. Illegal here and illegal there. If he has no charges and he's being held in prison in El Salvador, at the very least he should be released immediately there. But we feel he should come back home to his family. Next. Yes.
Yeah, can you comment on the agreement between the IRS and DHS to share taxpayer information on undocumented?
We will take off-topic questions afterwards, yeah.
So nothing has yet made an impression on the Trump administration, right? They could have brought him back potentially. That's the argument. What makes you think this effort will make any difference at all?
I think that when you hear a mother speak about what is happening in her home with her children because her husband and the father of her children is not there, I think that moves this nation. And public sentiment in this nation, as Abraham Lincoln said, right in the middle of the Civil War, is everything. And so I feel that Jennifer and Jennifer's stories could move mountains, not just bring them back home. I think she could move mountains. She's talking from her heart. She's talking from her children's heart. She's here with Kilmer's mom and brother. This young man has had to take up the role of his brother to keep this family together. We commend him for that. I think this is an American story, a great story to be told. I don't see how it cannot change anybody's heart. If it doesn't, that person doesn't have a heart.
¿Quisieran dejar algún mensaje a los miembros de la Corte Suprema que tienen que tomar una deliberación pronto sobre este tema, ustedes y también la familia?
Sí, como no. Bueno, nosotros pensamos que la Corte realmente erró en no traer a Kilmer back de inmediatamente, pero todavía tenemos esperanzas que ellos van a hacer la cosa correcta, que es regresar a Kilmer, porque él no violó ninguna ley aquí, ninguna ley en El Salvador, y él estaba aquí como una persona que tenía derecho a estar aquí. Entonces, la Corte sabe esto. Nomás dijeron, bueno, no lo vamos a hacer de un modo tan pronto. Lo hubieran hecho mejor, pero ahora tienen la oportunidad de corregir eso y traerlo para atrás. Y eso es lo que estamos exigiendo, que traigan a Kilmer para atrás, para que esté aquí con su familia. Kilmer necesita estar aquí con sus hijos, con su esposa, con su mamá. Y yo creo que lo más poderoso que vimos este día realmente fue las lágrimas de una madre, de una esposa. Eso creo que es lo que va a cambiar a los corazones de muchos americanos para ver cómo están sufriendo la gente sin sentido, sin justicia. Y por eso esperamos que también la Corte tenga un corazón y haga las cosas correctas.
Last question I have. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi. So you've already mentioned a few things, but is there anything else that you guys as Democratic members of Congress can do to pressure the administration or get answers for the family? And then a quick follow-up, just that. Have you made any...
Well, that continues outside of D.C. We want to take you now just outside of the White House with some breaking news that just happened. Stocks are surging now after President Trump and the administration announced a 90-day pause on tariffs, though it would also raise taxes on Chinese goods. Let's listen in live because this is a major change from the administration just announced moments ago.
President Trump created maximum negotiating leverage for himself, and which tariffs went into effect 15 hours ago. The ones that we have lowered went into effect a week ago, they were announced a week ago, and we have just been overwhelmed by the response from mostly our allies who want to come and negotiate in good faith. So we are expecting them to come with their best deal. As I said a week ago today, don't retaliate, hold your ground, let's see what happens. And China, they kept escalating and now they have 125% tariffs that will be effective immediately.
Mr. Secretary,
go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for doing this. The 90-day pause when there was some tariffs, is that because of the whiplash that we've been seeing across the financial markets? How much was, what we saw in the stock markets, a part of this decision?
No, it's because because of the large number of inbounds, we've had more than 75 countries contact us, and I imagine after today there will be more. So it is just a processing problem. Each one of these solutions is going to be bespoke. It is going to take some time, and President Trump wants to be personally involved. So that's why we're getting the 90-day pause.
Secretary,
there was a tweet that you and Secretary Lutnick were in the Oval Office with the President talking about this. Can you talk about what that conversation was like and what you guys said to one another that led to this decision?
Look, it's all the President's decision, and the President had a level in mind to raise the China tariffs, and then he had the 3-month pause in mind, and we were discussing the exact wording. Sorry? Of course.
It's the President's decision.
It's the President's decision. It was the President's decision to wait until today, and again, as I've said in the past, no one creates leverage for himself like President Trump.
Mr. Secretary. Shelby, go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, what does the President want to see by this, I think it's July 9th deadline to keep things paused? Is it just trade barriers coming down, or is it more than that?
These are trade negotiations, but if countries want to come and offer other things, I talked about yesterday that we are thinking about a big LNG project in Alaska that South Korea, Japan, Taiwan are interested in financing and taking a substantial portion of the offtake. But again, in essence, that is trade because it will decrease the trade deficit that we have with those countries. So everything's on the table.
Raquel, go ahead. A clarification on the pause. What happened to those countries who just had a 10% baseline tariffs, like Brazil and others? Are they still going to have this 90-day pause? Because you were saying that there will be a tariff of 10% for others. So what happened to those who just had a 10%?
Yeah, that's going to remain.
And do you call this an embargo to China?
Pardon?
You call this an embargo to China, a trade embargo?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the word embargo.
125% tariffs, like those, and then impose 84%. Isn't this an embargo?
Well, it's not. It's China's decision that we have the deficit with them. They sell us almost 5 times what we sell them. So again, I think it's an own goal by China.
Mr. Secretary, Meredith. Mr. Secretary, does this signal that you're confident that you're going to be able to strike a satisfactory deal with all these 75 nations that approach you?
It signals that President Trump cares about trade and that we want to negotiate in good faith. And as I said, each one of these is going to be a separate, bespoke negotiation. So we are confident that having seen the other side of where this could go, and it was like I said last week, the market didn't understand. Those were maximum levels. The countries can think about those levels as they come to us to bring down their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers. We're going to discuss currency manipulation, subsidy of labor, and industry.
Secretary, as far as you, will the pause also apply to the sectoral tariffs that the president has announced, pharma, lumber, anything else?
No, it's on the reciprocal.
So those will still be coming here soon, right? Mr.
Correct.
Secretary, as far as the negotiations with the 75
Andrea, go
countries,
ahead.
Mr. Secretary, so I want to ask you about what you're doing here. So the market is reacting crazily, right?
I haven't seen it.
Do you think that this move is going to sort of change and calm down the market reaction?
What?
Do you think the markets have tanked, right? You know, there's been a lot of volatility in the market, not just in terms of stock markets, but also in terms of bonds. So will this move, in your mind, do you anticipate that this is going to calm the markets down?
Well, I think what we've seen, I think the willingness by more than 75 countries to come and negotiate, I think now the market understands that everything they saw last Wednesday was a ceiling, and now we have a 10% temporary floor, and I think the market, my 35 years in the market, I always wanted certainty, so I think we've got more certainty.
But Mr. Secretary, why do
Maggie, go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, why do people assume this is the last word? The president began this morning saying, be cool. 5 hours later, he announces a new policy. Why will investors in the market assume that this is it?
Because, again, as I said, we've given 90 days, and the only certainty we can provide is that the U.S. is going to negotiate in good faith, and we assume that our allies will too. And in terms of certainty, we will see what China does. But what I'm certain of is that what China is doing will affect their economy much more than it will ours, because they have an export-driven, flood the world with cheap export models, and the rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our tariff wall, those exports were already flowing to the rest of the G7 and to the global South.
And you think
Mr.
Secretary,
how much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening with bonds? Is China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along, and that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
What's your message to the
Mr.
Secretary?
Countries weren't
These negotiations with these 75 countries, how long will that take? Will it be a matter of weeks? Will it be a matter of months? Do you expect financial markets to be stable during that time period?
Well, we've started with a 90-day pause, and we will see if more countries turn up, what will happen. But we have a meeting with Vietnam today, and we have one of the largest trade deficits with them, so I'm hoping it will move in a good direction. I was at the Japanese ambassador's house last night for the Cherry Blossom Festival, which was quite festive, and he and I had a good chat, they are going to send a deal team over. So we'll see. These are complicated negotiations. These are imbalances that have taken decades to create. But I think having seen the maximum level that Donald Trump is willing to go to, President Trump has created this negotiating leverage.
Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me. The secretary is obviously a very busy man, as he has said. He's had more than 75 countries that the trade team has to respond to. I'd just like to end with this. For decades, Republicans and Democrats have said that these unfair trade practices are ripping off the American people, are ripping off our country, but nobody has ever done anything to address it. We finally have a president here at the White House who is playing the long game, who is doing what is right for the American worker and our industries here at home, and he has put together a fantastic team in Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lustnick, the entire trade team who will be focusing on negotiating these good deals to put the American workers first, and we're going to get to work to do that. Thank you.
What about the EU? What about the EU? They retaliated this.
Excuse me, if you're just joining us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, you just caught really a wild development from outside of the White House, a major development, I should say, after days of wild market turmoil on Wall Street and throughout the global markets. What just was announced there by the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, along with the press secretary there, is that the Trump administration and the U.S., as a result, is putting largely a 90-day pause on most tariffs to most of the countries that had faced, in some places, anywhere from a 10% up to a 46% for countries like Vietnam, tariff on incoming goods into the United States. The administration is now saying they're putting a 90-day pause on most of those tariffs to most of those countries, while at the same time announcing that China will actually face an even higher rate than they were already facing. The rate for Chinese imports was up to 104% threatened by the White House. That has now been raised up to 125% tax rate on Chinese imports. So the attempt here seems to be narrowing what had turned into a global trade war, the U.S. versus the world, into a more narrow war, the U.S. versus China, as there is now a 90-day pause on tariffs to most countries, while the White House decides to escalate its tariff rate against Chinese goods specifically. As I said, a major development there coming from the White House, and just hours after President Donald Trump had posted on his own social media account, Truth Social, to stay the course and for asking Americans to be cool was one of his posts this morning. The stock market certainly likes this. The Dow is up 1,800 points already today in trading after this announcement from the administration. We're going to take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We have a reporter here in Milwaukee covering our big story of the day. We're going to check in with Christina Van Zels on the other side of this, a suspicious fire that police are investigating. But that is certainly the biggest headline around the world and here in the United States and Wisconsin specifically, a 90-day pause on foreign tariffs to most of the countries impacted by that, while the U.S. increases the rate on Chinese goods coming into the country. We'll take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Back after this.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh joining you here from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as we get you situated on this Wednesday afternoon. Again, the news we just brought you from that live press conference with the Treasury Secretary, the press secretary outside of the White House. The U.S. has now paused tariffs on most of the countries facing them, while notably increasing a tariff rate on Chinese goods coming into America. And the stock market seems to approve of that. Let me see if I can pop this up for you here real quick. What the response has been like. This is the Dow Jones Industrial. There you can see hovering right around zero for most of the day, and then a massive spike just moments ago, right after 1 o'clock there, when this announcement came through. That's 1 o'clock Eastern time, of course, out there in New York City. Up almost 6 percentage points, more than 2,000 points right now on the Dow Jones Industrial after the news that the Trump administration has now paused tariffs for 90 days against the majority of countries facing them. Now, we also want to get to some of the news of the day here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as we give you a live look at downtown Milwaukee and some of the clouds over the skyline there. We are covering, unfortunately, something serious and something deadly, as Milwaukee police are investigating a fatal fire that happened near 30th and Capitol. And we're joined now by Christina Van Zelst, our reporter on this story for us here at Fox 6 today. Christina, I understand you just heard some new information from police, so I guess first of all, catch us up on what exactly this fire was and why it seemed a little bit different to police and to investigators immediately.
Hey, Carl. Yeah, as you mentioned, this fire were near 30th and Capitol, and this happened yesterday afternoon. Police and firefighters were called around 2:20, and they at the time said the fire was suspicious. We actually just learned from Milwaukee police that they are searching for a known suspect, and that person is wanted for both homicide and arson. So that is some new information we learned this afternoon about what that person is wanted for. And actually, as we've been here, they just opened this front door. This is an apartment building, and some of the residents who were displaced by the fire have just now been let in. We know that the person who died in this fire is a 71-year-old. Again, police say they know who they're looking for, wanted for both homicide and arson, but really the circumstances as to what led up to this fire are not clear at this time. We did just talk with some residents who went inside, and they say that it appears the fire started on the first floor, which is where all of these boards are, but then the person who neighbors say was a man who died lived on the third floor. So again, a lot of unanswered questions at this point in the afternoon. We did reach out to the medical examiner's office for more information about the person who died here, but it's not clear exactly how they died at this time. We just know that the person is wanted for both homicide and arson. And Carl, we're going to actually take you around to the side of the building. When we got here, it was really hard to tell that there was a fire at all, except for the first floor that's boarded up. But really not a lot of damage to the building on the outside. Again, as residents are coming in, you can smell the smoke residue as the door opened there. But they're all telling us that the fire appears to have started on the first floor, and the person who was found deceased lived on the third floor.
Interesting, and I'm sure police are still continuing with the investigation, looking into things as well. Beyond the description of the suspicious and the known person that they're looking for, who they say is wanted for both arson and homicide, anything that you could glean in terms of a connection to the person who died, that 71-year-old, or does that seem to be an unfortunate case, a coincidence there?
Yeah, we've heard a lot of neighbors talking about what they think happened, but again, nothing confirmed from police. We did actually talk with a gentleman who lives in this building, very understandably emotional because he was displaced by the fire. He says he knows the person who passed away. He mentioned some history there of who he thinks might have been the person involved in this case, but we're not sure exactly what those circumstances are. But he said when he came home, he saw smoke coming out of the first floor of the building. Same with another gentleman we talked to on camera. They saw the smoke. There were not reports of flames being visible from the outside of the building, more so just that smoke kind of pluming as they described it. But the gentleman that we interviewed who lived here, he was in tears talking about this situation, and he has a cat that actually was able to get out from the fire. But a lot of emotional residents. We're being careful from shooting the front door here because people are emotional and don't want to be filmed at this time. But yeah, still a lot of unanswered questions. We're not really clear what the connection is at this point, but people are definitely talking about it.
Yeah, and certainly understandable, and certainly don't want to put any of the conjectures out there until we get some more official word and from your reporting and police investigations as well. When it comes to the building, Christina, it looks like quite a large building. Have there been a lot of people going in and out? And are some of the people in places not affected able to stay there, or is anyone who lives there trying to find a place to stay tonight?
So the gentleman that we spoke to who lives here, he said he was still looking for a place to stay yesterday. It appears the maintenance crew is here now, so they are letting some of those residents back into the building. We haven't been able to locate the landlord because the door was blocked with these boards, as you can see. But some of the residents, yes, they were displaced, and when we've been here, we've seen them come back through the front door, just getting back into their apartment for the first time. I don't know how many people currently live here, but it is a pretty big building, and again, the damage is really not visible from the outside.
Yeah, interesting. It'll be interesting to see what we can see from the inside. Last question for you here, Christina. Often we'll hear about the Red Cross potentially helping out with people displaced because of a fire or out of a home. Any word on that yet, or still, I know you're in the middle of your reporting today on this story?
Yeah, sorry, we've just had some people come up to us and ask if we knew what was going on. I think there's that question, right, of where can residents go? We haven't heard for sure from the Red Cross, but it seems like they're letting people back in right now. But we'll definitely try to get that question answered just so that people know what resources are out there and what they can do if they've been displaced by this fire, because it looks like the entire first floor might have had damage just based on what I'm seeing from the outside with the boarded up windows.
And we'll let you get back to that reporting as well. Out there on a very busy stretch, you can see at 30th and Capitol, the cars whizzing by, and that, I'm sure, led to plenty of questions for people yesterday, Christina, with smoke coming out of that really in the middle of the afternoon. That is Christina Van Zels reporting for us here at the Wisconsin Live Desk. Thank you very much. I hope the rest of your day goes smoothly, Christina.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, and that is the story in Milwaukee. As we check in, again, the latest update from Christina there, that Milwaukee police are looking for a known suspect. That person is wanted for arson and homicide after a fire broke out at the Milwaukee apartment building near 30th and Capitol. Happened yesterday afternoon around 2:20. Unfortunately, a 71-year-old died after that, was found dead with fatal injuries following that apartment fire. We're going to take another break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, taking you around the region, around the country, even around the world, as we checked in with the Defense Secretary in Panama moments ago. We'll see what we find for you on the other side of this break.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Deffenbaugh back with you here, 105 Central Time in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as we rejoin you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We just heard the news of the day in Milwaukee. Our Christina Van Zelst reporting on a possible arson after a person died in an apartment fire yesterday. Milwaukee police say they're looking for a known suspect and that they know the person they're looking for, also that person is wanted for both arson and homicide. In the meantime, we want to take you out to Wauwatosa. We mentioned this at the top of the Wisconsin Live Desk. The medical college there, Frederick Medical College of Wisconsin, one of the many medical facilities participating in Donate Life Month here in April, recognizing organ donation and the life-saving impact that can have. Let's listen in as the speakers have started ahead of a 108 planned flag raising.
Take care of your blood pressure and try to manage your diabetes and try not to become a type 2 diabetic. But so, me as a child, I was dealt some cards. There you go, you're a type 1 diabetic, and you have some complications, deal with insulin, and why don't we throw in, you have one kidney. Horrible combination, good luck with that. Well, luckily, we can't always control the cards we're dealt in life, but we can control how we play them. So for me, with the help of my family, my friends, co-workers, healthcare providers, I was able to extend the life of my one kidney while having diabetes for about 40 years. But every year throughout my life, kidney was going worse and worse, and about after 40 years, I was going towards kidney failure. So I was talking to my nephrologist, Dr. Sajad, and said, you're going to need a transplant or you're going to go up on dialysis. I'm like, oh, I got a plan. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a live donor. I'm going to get that kidney, and I'm never going to go on dialysis. That's my plan, I thought. So as soon as I left my nephrologist, I texted one of my friends from 7th grade, because throughout my life, when people found out I had one kidney, said, hey, if you ever need a kidney, let me know. Noted. I keep that. They might have been kidding, but you have one kidney, you don't take that as a joke. So I texted my friend who said that first, and he was on board. He started going through the process, and 13 other people wanted to help donate a kidney to me. I was shocked that I had that many friends. All these people wanted to donate life to me, and in the meantime, they're going through the process. They're getting screened, they're doing everything they have to do, and I'm getting sicker and sicker. At work, I'm acting like a cat, which that means, I don't know if you have cats, but cats randomly vomit throughout the day. That's what I was doing at work. I always made it to the bathroom, but I was getting sick, randomly vomiting. Eventually, I was on dialysis. I was feeling better with dialysis, but my 12 or 13 people who wanted to donate were not able to. None of them could not donate to me, and it's not because they're an exact match. That is a misconception. You do not have to be an exact match to donate a kidney. There's a lot of scientific things behind the scenes, and also you can do something that's called pair donation, where my friend donates to someone else he matches, and that person's friend donates to me or donates to them, and it donates. It's like a big kidney swap, but very scientific and not so flea market-ish. It's way more scientific. So none of the flea market didn't work for me. I didn't have any donors who could donate to me that were live. So I got on a new path. I was on waiting for a kidney for about 2-ish, 3-ish years, and I was on a new path of kidney pancreas. So a deceased donor could give me a kidney and a pancreas. Kidney to do all the kidney stuff, the pancreas to take care of the insulin. I was excited about that, and I was waiting for about 2 months. I was at home. I was in the living room with my son Sam, and my wife just left to go outside because she needed to get away from us. She needed what she calls, I just need 20 minutes. Sam and I are extroverts. We both love to talk, and Jenny is an introvert. She doesn't want us to talk at all. So she went outside to get her 20 minutes, and I get a call, and I look at it and say, hey, Sam, get your mom. I think this may be a kidney. So he runs outside. She's wearing headphones, and I'm talking. I take the call, and it is a kidney pancreas offer. So I'm talking to them, asking questions. They're asking me questions. Sam's outside chasing Jenny down and said, Daddy has a kidney. Daddy has a kidney. And she's just hearing. So, and she said, I just need 20 minutes, Sam. I'll be right back. And finally, she takes off the headphones. She runs back in, and I'm doing the call. We're making the plans. Immediately after I'm done with the call, I go to church and I pray, and I go to work. I go to work because I'm going to be gone for a few months, and doing paperwork, making sure things can be covered, and I call my boss, and she says, "What are you doing working? You're crazy." So that my boss, Francis, kind of got me to stop working. And before I left work, what I do every day at work is I do a joke of the day. It's on a whiteboard. People look at the joke, and there's a joke up here, punchline up here. So I wanted everyone to know what was happening to me. So the joke I wrote that day before I left, this is Saturday afternoon, was, what do you call it when a kidney moves its garden? Transplant. So I was basically, joke's not funny, but I thought it was hilarious when I was leaving. Transplant, I was going for a transplant. I wrote a joke on top of the head, leaving. So I go to surgery on Monday. I do all this stuff behind the scenes. So I go to sleep. They do the surgery. Zip. I'm guessing that's how it happened. I was asleep. I don't really know what happened during the surgery. So I wake up, and they tell me, hey, your kidney's working great. We're going to keep giving you insulin because the pancreas hasn't kicked in yet. So eventually the pancreas does not kick in. They have to take me back into surgery. So I go back to sleep, and zip, zip, ka-chunk. As you can see, they had to take the pancreas out. The pancreas was not working. It had a blood clot. So I did not have the pancreas. I had the kidney, and I was crushed. There was a nurse, I was crying. There was a nurse there named Rachel. She got me through it. Dr. Dunn and her team and everyone got me through it, saying, hey, if we find another pancreas before you heal, we'll put it in. And it was so I had a week in the hospital. I left a Sunday afternoon. I had to come back Monday morning for my post-transplant meeting, where your first day talking about stuff, making sure everything's going good. But before the appointment starts, Dr. Dunn comes in and says, Daniel, I think she called me Daniel. Daniel, we have a pancreas for you. I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. I almost said no because I just rejected. I got rid of a pancreas. I'm going to go through surgery again, and maybe it may not work. But my nephrologist, transplant nephrologist, Dr. Thomas, was there, and he said, Dan, this is the Ferrari of pancreases. You may have to go through another week of recovery. You may have to go through surgery, but you're going to have a long time of that pancreas giving you insulin. So I said yes. So I went back into surgery. I went to sleep. Zip. And it worked. I got the pancreas working. Things were going great. I'm not vomiting at work. I had recovery. Everything's going good. I'm able to do stuff with my son again because I'm not on dialysis at night. My life was good, and that's basically a 40-year story mixed about around 10 minutes. But I gotta say, that's not my story. I'm just alive to tell the story of two people who died and donated life to me. It's their story. And before I got here last week, my mom said, oh, you're so brave. You're an inspiration. I said, I'm not brave. I'm not brave at all. I'm just some random sick guy that was blessed and lucky enough for two people who died to donate their organs to me. I do have a quick story of some heroes out there. One hero from college, Ryan Ringhand, he died in his 30s, and he was always an advocate for donating life. And when he died, he donated his heart, his kidneys, and other organs and saved several lives. And another hero is his wife, Jen Ringhand. And one more hero I'm going to mention real quick is Dick Gerchinski. Dick Gerchinski was very sick. He died in his 50s. He had multiple organs fail. He was going blind. He died, and they asked his son Ivan if he could donate organs, and Ivan was shocked. He's completely sick. All his organs are shot. What do you mean you want his organs? So we can use his skin. So Ivan agreed, donated his skin, and skin is our #1 protection against disease. It's like a shield. So Dick Gerchinski was also to save lives. So those are a couple of heroes that I mentioned, but all of you can be heroes. Maybe you're heroes now by donating blood. We have a hero who donated a kidney. You can donate a kidney to a random person. You can choose to donate life once you die, or you can just tell the story. Tell stories to others, inspire them to donate. Another thing is you might become some random sick guy, a random sick person where you may need blood, you may need organs, you may need tissues. So you can be a hero, you can inspire others. So that's what I say. I remind you, my name is Dan Michaels. I'm just some random sick guy that was blessed by 2 people giving their organs to me. So I want to thank you for listening to their story that I was able to tell because they kept me alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
How about that story, that energy from a random sick guy there outside of Frederick Hospital? April is National Donate Life Month. He is just one of the many people who have received the gift of life from organ donors, as you heard him detailing there. We are about to see the flag raising there at Frederick Hospital, but if you're just joining us, it was supposed to be at 1:08. Obviously, Daniel had a lot to share there with his story, because one donor can save up to 8 lives. There will also be a 100-second moment of silence as they raise that Donate Life flag outside of Frederick Hospital in Wauwatosa, representing the more than 100,000 patients waiting for a life-saving transplant in the U.S. Let's get back to the ceremony.
So, throughout April, we ask you to help us to continue to educate our fellow Wisconsinites about the need for more registered organ, tissue, and eye donors, and by making it your personal mission to speak to at least one person about organ donation. And if they're not already registered, urge them to consider taking that step to formalize their decision at donatelifewisconsin.org. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and please take pictures with Dottie. She's been here great. Thank you all so much. Thank you guys for coming and sharing your stories.
Dottie even making an appearance there outside of Frederick Hospital as we show you a look at that flag now waving proudly up in the breeze on this Wednesday afternoon in Wisconsin. I guess they did the flag raising a bit earlier during that ceremony there. But again, April is National Donate Life Month. You just heard from that gentleman, Daniel, sharing his story and what a life-changing event that can be for many receiving an organ donation, and some of the stories of the people who chose to donate as well. Some of the numbers here, quite staggering. 100,000 patients in the U.S. are waiting for a life-saving transplant of some kind. Here in the state of Wisconsin, that number is 1,400 people, 1,400 who need organs. And that Donate Life flag that you're seeing right there waving in the breeze, first introduced back in 2006. It's become a national symbol of unity, remembrance, and hope for both the families of donors, if they are not living donors, of course, and those who have received those organ transplants and that life-saving gift from someone out there, often a stranger. It honors the different donations, the transplantations, and during the past 18 years since that flag was first introduced in 2006, 100,000 Donate Life flags, they estimate, have flown across America, including here in Wauwatosa. And we can tell you just from a couple of weeks ago, Adversity Blood Center in downtown Milwaukee as well. So that flag flying proudly all across southeastern Wisconsin. We have another break to give you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. When we come back on the other side, who knows what we'll find. Quite a day, both here in Wisconsin and for the stock markets around the country, around the world. We'll update you on how those are looking after a tariff pause from the Trump administration shocked many, including traders on Wall Street. That's coming up after the break.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Defenbaugh back here on the Wisconsin Live Desk for you as we just had the big news of the day from the White House, a pause from the administration, the Trump administration, on most of the tariffs that countries around the world were facing as a result of the president's announcement in the Rose Garden last week. I want to pop up the stock market for you right here. This is the Dow Jones Industrial, up more than 6.5 percentage points right now, close to 2,500 points. And you see that sharp spike right after 1 o'clock or so. That was as the president made the announcement, and then we heard from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, actually live here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, detailing that dramatic change from the administration. So to catch you up to speed, the Treasury Secretary said, for the most part, countries will maintain a 10% tariff from the United States on nearly all global imports. But those drastic numbers, take a country like Vietnam facing more than 45% tariffs on incoming goods, those large numbers to so many countries have been put on pause now for 90 days. The outlier is China, one of the largest, of course, trading partners of the U.S., and one that had not backed down and not seen to go to the negotiating table when the president announced steep tariffs against China. Instead, the administration says as a result of China choosing to increase its tariffs on U.S. imports to China, the U.S. will now tax Chinese imports up to 125%. So in effect, this is narrowing what was a global trade war, the U.S. versus the world, to the U.S. versus China, at least for now, with this 90-day pause on most of those tariffs to most countries in effect. As you're seeing from the stock market, quite a rebound here as a number of different automakers, travel industry, think airlines, things like that, tech stocks all rose dramatically along with the stock market and global markets as a whole. Now, a word of caution as we are getting all of this really in the flux as it happens on the Wisconsin Live Desk. A noted, let me pull this up for you, former U.S. trade official by the name of William Reinsch, a former U.S. trade official now at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, cautions that countries could drift away from the U.S. dollar as kind of the standard currency out there throughout the world, saying, quote, sure, it's good news, but how does anybody know that he, meaning President Trump, won't change his mind on Friday or next week? And so this former U.S. trade official is warning that this could lead other countries to drift away from the U.S. as a trading partner, and more importantly, from the dollar as kind of the currency of world trade because of the fluctuations that we've seen even just over the last week or so. As we switch gears here, I'll give you a live look at downtown Milwaukee on this Wednesday afternoon. We're seeing the clouds over there. I'm going to try to bring in our weather expert, Stephanie Barrichello, hanging out with us in the weather office. Hello, Steph. How are you today? Hold on. I got to get your microphone up, and then we'll actually be able to hear you.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh,
Hello.
Okay. Hello, Carl.
That was on my end. So we're seeing the clouds today. We know it's quite an eventful day here in Milwaukee, certainly across the state of Wisconsin as well. Because of what's coming, we kind of have to get through this day, right?
Yeah, and then the weekend looks fantastic.
That's what we're holding on to.
Really, Carl, we have yet to see precip move in. We've really stayed dry so far, so kind of a delayed onset of precip, I'd say. You know, we've got cloud cover, and temperatures have dropped a little bit in Milwaukee because we've seen a lake breeze kick in, but we are still well into the 40s across the area, feeling a little cooler, but with the fact that we're still well above freezing, as some of this precip moves in, it's still expected to start and primarily be rain. But later this evening, as temperatures do begin to drop, that's when we could still see just at least a brief period of some wintry mix and slushy snow. So we're not quite done yet when it comes to some of the wintry type weather. But as you can see across the region, it's really just cloud cover right now. We have yet to see some of that rain making its way on through. Potentially a few sprinkles up north at this moment, Fond du Lac into, let's say, southern Sheboygan County or northern Ozaki, as well as down towards the south. But the bigger picture showing more rain, some wintry mix far north, but primarily rain off towards the west. And that's going to continue to move in our direction. So at this point, I think within the hour, we will start to see at least some light rain showers across some inland and northern communities, then more of that steady, but still somewhat spotty rain heading on into your late afternoon. And then watching your evening commute time still for some wintry mix, maybe some slushy accumulation by the time we hit, Thursday morning hours, but mainly on grassy surfaces. Better chance for that's going to be across some of our northern communities. So it's still pretty much a wait and see type event at this point, but you can see from radar that there is at least some rain off towards the west. So it will be moving on in here in the next hour or two. Just take it slow as you're commuting later on this evening, especially in those spots that could see that transition over to wind tree mix.
We've kind of had it all over the last few weeks, I feel like, from spotty rain like this, even some snow flurries recently, to that one day of just torrential downpours, it seems. So it sounds like this is not that level of rain, right? You'll deal with it throughout the evening commute, but maybe not a washout.
Right, exactly. Maybe, you know, up to a quarter or slightly over of an inch of rainfall, but with the fact that this has been so delayed too, we should have seen precip by now. It may even be a little bit lighter than that.
Any effect to look out for, whether it's the evening commute or tomorrow morning, honestly, if people are starting to plan out their night and their following day? Is that going to be an issue for drivers, or still to be determined?
Yeah, I still think tonight is really going to be the more impact time. Tomorrow morning, there could still be some light mix lingering in communities, but temperatures should still stay above freezing, so not expecting, you know, terrible roadways or anything like that. If we do end up seeing some snowfall accumulation, a lot of it will be on the grass or maybe those off and on ramps. So yeah, I would absolutely allow some extra travel time Thursday morning, but the bulk of the steady precip we see this evening is going to end overnight. We'll just have some lingering, scattered activity for tomorrow morning. So more so this evening that we're watching, but make sure you're checking Wake Up tomorrow morning to get the latest from Rob.
Pretty good plug. You can get it here on Fox Local as well. Stephanie, thank you very much, our weather expert, joining us back there in the booth. That's going to wrap up another edition of the Wisconsin Live Desk as the stocks continue to rally. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see